Hello, everyone. We are live. Are we? Let me know in the live chat. May the bliss be with you all and be blessing your lives. Let me know how my audio is in the live chat. And you guys know what we're doing today. We're going to be reviewing the next, I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 minutes of this debate. This is part two of reviewing the debate between Harris Sultan and Daniel Haqiqatjou. I'm going to try to make it so that the people who didn't watch part one will still like make this an independent video that makes sense on its own. But yeah, so for people who don't know, Daniel Haqiqatjou is the Muslim here, and Harris Sultan is the ex-Muslim atheist here, and they were debating Sharia, and we are reviewing their debate. So let's get started. So the audio, the audio is great. Thank you. Okay, so let's just get started, right? So we left it at the part where Daniel Haqiqatjou was using Botswana as an example and a few other countries as an example for why human rights is not good, because it doesn't necessarily encourage economic growth. And he used anecdotal evidence, a handful of examples, to show why that is the case. And if any of you know anything about how research or data analysis is done, you would know that that's not how you do it. And it's strange that somebody, Daniel Haqiqatjou, which is a graduate from Harvard, wouldn't know that. I mean, this is not just embarrassing for Daniel Haqiqatjou. This is also an embarrassment for Harvard. Like, how are you? What are you doing there in the universities? Like, this is like common knowledge of how you do not do data analysis, right? So, I mean, how do you manage to get a degree from such a university and then come out and say something so pathetically embarrassing? I don't understand. And we actually looked at some research, and the research actually suggests that human rights does encourage GDP growth based on research, not based on the handful of examples that Daniel picked, right? And even if it didn't, we will still support human rights because we're on Team Human, right? We are like, I'm assuming a lot of you on the live chat here, we're like Team Human, right? So we don't just support human rights because of the GDP per capita growth. We actually do it because we think, like, happiness and safety and security for humans is important beyond just what's in their pocket. Maybe like there are other things in life that is important beyond just GDP per capita growth, beyond just like economic prosperity, right? So anyways, now we're moving to yes sir, music guy is saying they're on Team Human. Great team. Yeah, Susanna is saying hashtag Team Human. Great team. Yeah. No offense to any animals that are not human out there. Okay, let's get started.
Even have very high
Hold on.
levels of atheism. So why aren't they enjoying progress?
All right, so this is the
prosperity?
End of his point.
Let's call this question the Botswana question.
Again, I have to emphasize again of how cute this is that he actually labeled it, because he thinks that this is such a gotcha at human rights. He just like, for now and forever, this will be labeled as the Botswana question. Guys, like, we're done. Let's pack it up, guys. Human rights is over. The Botswana question is like what Daniel has labeled as the unanswerable flaw in human rights, support for human rights. All right, so that's done. Let's move on to the next part.
If Harris cannot explain these discrepancies, if he cannot answer this Botswana question, then he should admit that democracy and human rights are just a big hoax. Harris wants people to hate Islam by trying to pin the issue of poverty and social dysfunction to Muslim countries, but as we've seen, it's not a strong connection.
Again, this is a straw man. I mean, I hope it's a straw man for Harris. If it's not, then that's wrong. I'm assuming that most of us sane people don't think that everything wrong with the planet is because of Islam. We do acknowledge that there are other reasons why a country might be poor and being held back. It's not just because of Islam is bad and has a negative effect on the world, and every country that is Islamic is suffering because it's Islamic. but there are other factors at play as well. So yeah, it's not just Islam.
Connection.
Anyways.
Lie number 2, Harris wants to pretend like his problem is with Islam, but in reality, his criticisms of Islam apply to every single religion and every traditional form of culture. Because
lie number 2, how is this a lie? Harris has been so open about being against every religion. Lie number 2, he says Harris wants to pretend that this is a problem with Islam, but his problem is with every religion. It's no lie, Daniel. He says that on his streams, on his videos. He is famous for going aggressively against Hindutva and Hinduism. He has entire videos dedicated to highlighting the problems with other religions. Lie number 2, like, do you not know the person that you're debating against, or are you not aware? Like, if you don't, then why are you making an assumption? Lie number 2. Well, let me actually listen. Let me actually see if I'm misrepresenting him, because this is like really bad. God damn it. Hold on.
Admit that democracy and human rights are just a big hoax. Harris wants people to hate Islam by trying to pin the issue of poverty and social. Lie number 2, Harris wants to pretend like his problem is with Islam, but in reality, his criticisms of Islam apply to every single religion and every traditional form of culture.
No shit.
Because all traditional
look, Harris is like, yeah. He's like, yeah, it does. He's nodding his head. Like, yeah, of course it does. Why is this lie number 2? Maybe we say fact number 2. Nobody's pretending otherwise.
Religions and cultures clash with modern human rights. All traditional religions and cultures clash with modern human rights.
Yes, all religions clash, and traditional
form of culture, because all traditional religions and cultures clash.
Yes, all traditional religions and cultures clash with modernity. Yes, they do. Did any of us pretend otherwise? I mean, I don't think Harris has.
With modern human rights. Traditional Christianity, traditional Judaism, Native American culture, Hindu culture, Shinto religion, all of these traditional ways of life clash with modern human rights.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Yeah, we agree, Daniel. There's no pretending here. There's no lie here.
This is because human rights is an extremist ideology. Human rights ideology says that the most important thing is individual liberty and equality. Individual liberty and equality have to be prioritized over literally every other human value. This is extremism. Every other traditional religion and life philosophy says no.
Guys, let me actually point out something else about Harris. Harris and Atheist Prophet, they actually lost a lot of support and patrons and donations because of their support of me when Hindutva came after me. All right? And they both, and Abdullah Samir, and a lot of other people. So you're like, oh, these guys are pretending that this is just about Islam. The Apostate Prophet lost a lot of support when he came out and pointed out that the Hindutva attack is on me. It was just like a lot of Muslims who were doing the same thing. Again, hashtag not all Hindutva, hashtag not all Muslims, just those specific people, okay? And Harris Sultan went on after that to dedicate a lot of, before as well, to dedicate videos into the problems with Hinduism, constantly talking about the problems with Hinduism. Again, this shows how much these people are dedicated to actually pointing out something they don't agree with because it's wrong, even if it comes at the cost of losing subscribers and support and patrons. So I don't know why he's picking this as something to highlight, given that we know, and he's calling it a lie.
Individual liberty and equality. Other traditional religion and life philosophy says, no, individual liberty and equality have limits. Islamic law, for example, is extremism. Every other.
He's saying human rights is extremist. Let's see why is it extremism. Okay, let's try to, guys. I need to be steel manning Daniel Haqiqatjou as well. I'm going to try to give him the benefit of the doubt here. Okay, is human rights an extremist ideology? Let's think about this with each other. Okay.
Traditional religion and life philosophy says no. Individual liberty and equality have limits. Islam
hold on.
to be prioritized over literally.
All right, so you're saying it's because human rights are saying that what are the values that need to be prioritized over everything?
Individual liberty and equality have to.
Individual liberty, so human rights is an extremist ideology because individual liberty and equality need to be prioritized over everything, as opposed to
prioritized over literally every other human value.
Okay.
This is extremism. Every other traditional religion and life philosophy says.
Every other traditional life philosophy says what? Okay, so let's see what it takes for you to not be an extremist ideology. Okay.
No, individual liberty and equality have limits.
Okay, so first he said they are prioritized, and they said, well, these other traditions that are better than human rights doctrine and all that, they put limitations on individual liberty and equality and stuff like that. All right. Well, let's take a look. Actually, let's let him finish this thought before we take a look.
Islamic law, for example, agrees with the human rights activists that, like Harris, that individual liberty and equality are beautiful values. For example, in Islam, you have the right to your wealth, to your property, the right to privacy, and so forth. Also, Islam provides legal equality between all people, men and women.
He's saying Islam provides legal equality.
Muslims and non-Muslims in certain, but not all, areas of the law. But Islam says, yes, individual liberty and equality are beautiful values, but they're just two out of many beautiful values. And sometimes you have to restrict liberty and equality in order to preserve other important values and institutions.
Okay, so Islam is superior because it doesn't give you a complete freedom. It says okay, the individual liberty is good, equality is good to some extent, but that's not everything. There are some limitations that we need to include here in pursuit of other values and other things that are also important. Okay.
A useful analogy here is imagine offering a child candy or broccoli. If it were up to the child, he would choose the candy every time. Eventually, the child would get diabetes and die. That's what human rights liberalism is like. It's just about giving the candy of individual liberty and saying that's all that matters. Islam says, look, there's nothing wrong with candy. In fact,
there's a lot of things wrong with candy. Guys, don't eat candy, okay? Be mindful about your health.
We love candy, but if you only eat candy, you will die. You also need meat, dairy, vegetables, and carbs. As a simple example, in Islam, you can't
dairy, vegetable, and carbs. Candies are carbs.
You can't have sex with whomever you want, whenever you want.
All right, okay. Let's address this because it's gone for a while. Okay. So, guys, what do you think of when you think about, because when we mention human rights and what is human rights and what isn't, there are competing philosophies and people disagree on this, which is a good thing. But what is the most famous one when it comes to what is considered human rights? Do you guys know what is it, what comes to your mind as the most famous declaration of human rights? I think I gave it away. Never mind. Okay, so this is the most famous one, right? I mean, it's not the only one. Don't come at me like, Armin, this is not the only one. Yes. But this is the most famous one. So we're just going to use this as an example, right? We're going to use the Universal Declaration of Human Rights by the United Nations, right? Just to check if what Daniel said makes sense. Okay, so because he said, unlike human rights, Islam puts limitations. Okay, let me look at number. So these are the different articles of human rights declarations, right? Look at this one, Article 17. Everyone has the right to own property alone as well as in association with others. No one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his property. Okay. So, like, these are limitations. Right? You don't have a right to go take someone's property. That's in Article 17 of Human Rights Declaration, right? Let's also look at. So it's not like unlimited freedom that you could do whatever you want. Within Human Rights Declaration, there are some limitations, right? Like, let's look at. Yeah, let's go number 5. No one shall be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment. That's article number 5. Actually, maybe I should zoom in a little bit for you guys to see. Right? These are limitations to your freedom. So the Human Rights Declarations is not just freedom, it's also limitations. So he said, like, Islam is superior because it realizes that there needs to be some limits to your freedom. And I'm looking at the Human Rights Declaration, and it seems like it also has some limitations to your freedom, right? So is that big? Are you okay now, Daniel? What the you said that human rights is like an extremist ideology because it's extremism, because it has no limitation. It's just like freedom, 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 and no limitations. I'm looking here. I'm seeing some limitations. What else is there? Actually, let's look at some things that, because he keeps on focusing on how important family is. Let's look at Article 16. Article 16, it says men and women of full age. Ooh, a full age. That's an important thing to add, right? Like, apparently, this is, wait, which article was 16? Men and women of full age without any limitation due to race, nationality, or religion have the right to marry and to found a family. They are entitled to equal rights as to marriage during marriage and its dissolution. Marriage shall be entered into only with the free and full consent of the intending spouses. Hey, look, so there's actually limitations also on family. Like, what's the limitation? Is full consent, right? The family is the natural and fundamental. Whoa, guys, look at this. Apparently, human rights is like anti-family. Look how the Declaration of Human Rights by the United Nations, let's look at how it talks about family. The family is the natural and fundamental group unit of society and is entitled to protection by society and the state. Wow. I thought human rights declarations were like, we have to destroy the family. Apparently, apparently, according to the United Nations, it's the fundamental group unit of society. And not only it should be protected by society, but the state needs to be actively involved in protecting it. Wait, look, actually, there's another 17 is also about family. Everyone has a right to own property alone as well as... No, I think I already did that. No, what was the other one with family? 16. Oh, no, 12 was also family. Wow, okay. No one shall be subjected to arbitrary interference with his privacy, family, home. Oh, look, this is actually a limitation. Correspondence, nor to attacks upon his honor and reputation. Everyone has a right to the protection of the law against such interference or attacks. Oh, the protection of the law. What is the law, guys? Isn't the law a set of limitations, standards, and limitations on your freedom? So it seems like human rights declarations is not saying that everybody is free to do whatever they want. Not only there's going to be laws that is going to be protecting you, not only against attacks on your safety, but also attacks on your privacy, on your family, of your home, on your honor and reputation. Even your honor and reputation needs to be protected. There needs to be limitations on people when it comes to stop people from attacking your honor and reputation. That seems like a lot of limitations, guys. The Declaration of Human Rights is not just about freedom. There's a lot of limitation. You need to there needs to be laws that protects you from attacks on your honor and reputation. Okay, let me see what else. This is good. What else can we find here? Oh, actually, 18 should be something that Daniel supports. Everyone has the right to freedom of thought. Actually, no, he doesn't support that. Conscience and religion, but he should support that because that's the reason why he gets to practice Islam in the United States is because of this, adherence to this article, the freedom to practice his religion. This right includes freedom to change his religion or belief, like Daniel did from Shia to Sunni, and freedom either alone in or in a community with others and in public or private to manifest his religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance. Right? So, guys, if you're a Muslim in a non-Islamic country, this article is, adherence to this article is why you get to practice your religion. Oh, actually, so this is not just about freedom. He was also saying that human rights is an extremist because of its prioritizing equality. Let's look at equality. I think Article 23 is about equality. So, yeah. Everyone has the right to work to free choice of employment, to just and favorable conditions of work, and to protection against unemployment. Everyone without any discrimination has the right to equal pay for equal work. Equal pay for equal work. Okay? This is the form of equality that the Human Rights Declaration of Human Rights is suggesting. Not the equality of outcome, but the equality of opportunity, right? So if you see some leftists suggest that or some communists suggest that everybody has to be equal in every way, that's not what the Human Rights Declaration, the equality that the Human Rights Declaration is suggesting is the equal opportunity type of equality, not the equal outcome type of equality. So it's even mild when it comes to equality. It's giving you the milder version of equality, which makes sense, the equal opportunity equality, not the equal outcome, which would be more extreme version of equality. So even with the types of equality, we're not seeing the extremist version here, Daniel. So let me see, what else can we find here? I think I did 5. 5 is very important. We need to keep coming back to 5 because a lot of the things that Daniel is going to blame on human rights, things that happen in history that Daniel is going to blame on human rights is actually against every single human rights declaration ever. Right? Article number 5, remember this one. No one shall be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment. Right? Like Susanna is saying, Armin just taking a moment to shed on communism. We love to see it. Yes, every opportunity I get, I will do that. Yeah, okay. Also 16. Remember 16 as well, because we might come back to this one. Because when it comes to forming family and stuff, there was a limitation that was introduced here. Remember this one? The full consent of the intending partners, intending spouses. So remember this one. We will come back to it as we watch the debate.
A simple example, in Islam, you can't have sex with whomever you want, whenever you want. There are strict restrictions on premarital and extramarital relations. And the obvious benefit of this is that it ensures strong and stable marriages. This is because of human biology and natural human psychology. Islamic law perfectly accounts for human nature, and abiding by the Sharia has these clear benefits for marriage. But human rights says, no. People should have 100% individual liberty and 100% sexual autonomy. You should have the right to sleep with whomever you want, whenever you want, unimpeded.
Did you guys notice that? Did you guys notice that? What was the problem with what he just said? We just went over this. You guys better know what I'm talking about. One more time.
Autonomy. You should have the right to sleep with whomever you want.
So apparently, according to human rights, you should be able to sleep with whoever you want,
whenever you want, unimpeded.
Is that true? Is there no limitation according to human rights values? Is there no, what is the limit? What is the main limitation? What's the key word here, guys? What is the main limitation? Exactly. Yes, Pyro, there is a limitation. There is the most important limitation, which is consent. You can't have sex with whoever you want, whenever you want, unimpeded. There are limitations. What we argue is that the limitations that we introduce, the supporter of human rights, is better than your limitations. It's not that we don't have limitations. We have limitations, but we have limitations that actually make society better for more people, especially women in this regard. You don't even introduce the concept of consent. Is not even a thing, at least not a major thing in Islam. It's not like when it comes to who you get to sleep with, there are limitations, like what inside what makes sexual intercourse with someone else halal. There's a lot of limitation in Islam, but the consent of the woman, in fact, it has been, Islam is very clear about the fact that there's the concept of the woman should not be a factor. It doesn't go. It's not enough for it to just say that to just ignore consent. It actually goes out of its way to say you don't get to say no. Let me actually prove that to you guys. Let me see if I have that. You guys know what I'm referring to, right? I think you guys know which hadith I'm going to bring up. So he keeps trying to make it seem like that Islam has good limitations and human rights advocates don't have limitations, which is not true at all. But what's actually happening is that we also have limitations, but our limitations are better than your limitations. Here, this is a hadith. Look at this one, okay? So this is hadith Bukhari. Is it hadith Bukhari? Yes, it is. And this is Sahih hadith, which means it's authentic hadith. This is as Islam as it gets, second only to the Quran. Okay, this is the most authoritative source of what is Islamic in Sunni Islam, only second to the Quran, right? So let's look at what this is. So guys, here are the references if you don't believe me. It says the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if a man invites his wife to sleep with him and she refuses to come to him, then the angels send their curses on hell till morning. One more time. If a man invites his wife to sleep with him and she refuses to come to him, then the angels send their curses on her till morning. Okay, so and again, the curse word here, the word that is like, if you guys think that this is the Arabic version is not as aggressive, it's actually incredibly aggressive. This is the curse word. This is la'nat. La'nat is what is being translated as curse. And I don't know how aggressive this word is in Arabic, but in Persian, lanat is so disgusting. Like it's such a, like I think curse doesn't do it justice. This is, lanatullah or like lanat, like it's just such a disgust. It's such an insult. Like this is like the curses, the hateful curses of the angels be upon you if you say no to your husband when he wants to have sex with you. Okay, so basically Islam teaches you that you don't get to say no. Okay, this is a promotion. This is a promotion of rape. This is promotion of rape in Islam. This is Islamic teaching. Okay, so Daniel, we have limitations, and based on human rights, based on most human rights declarations and list of what is a human right or not, we have limitations on you, and you don't get to rape your wife. You don't get you don't get to. Okay, that's not okay. That is not allowed. Okay, and these are, again, so you don't get all the freedom in the world. You don't get to do whatever you want. You don't get to rape your wife. Well, by the way, by you, I don't mean Daniel. I'm not suggesting that he does. Okay, I'm just using a you. I'm not making an personal accusation against Daniel. Okay, I'm talking you as in people in general. Okay, so if that came across as me saying specifically that Daniel wants to rape his wife and he doesn't, that was not my intention. I was using you as a way to talk about anybody. Okay.
That may sound good to those who have been indoctrinated by this extremist ideology.
Oh yeah, Susanna is saying, guys, don't forget to like this video, please, like right now. It really helps. Okay.
But we have to ask, what are the consequences of such a policy? Is this
a policy that you just made up that is not true? As we have seen, there's many limitations. Human rights does not just give you freedom and absolute equality. There are some limits on equality, and there are many limits on your freedom, according to human rights as well. In fact, I would argue there's no way to support human rights without introducing limitations. Human rights requires you protecting humans, and you are not going to be able to protect humans without the limitations of some actions by other humans. So by its very nature, human rights requires limitations on human action.
Society that adopts unfettered sexual autonomy compatible with marriage, with love, with romance? Is it compatible with family? Well, we don't have to speculate. We can look at countries where this so-called human right has spread, and the statistics paint a very bleak, dark picture. And I'll discuss the exact statistics later in the debate, inshallah. Another example is family relations, because just family relations beyond just husband and wife. Science and anthropology say that humans have this deeply rooted biological drive to come together in families, and these families have a natural hierarchy with...
Wait, where's my meme? I was supposed to have a meme ready. Hold on. Let me actually put myself on the screen in case I open the wrong image and we get completely nuked out of... Where's my meme? I was supposed to have this meme for every time he mentions family. Oh, come on. I had this ready. I didn't have it. Where's my family meme? All right, I don't have it. What a failure. Hold on. I am very... Oh, there we go. Found it. Okay, good. We're going to have this in every one of our stream. Okay, cool.
Fathers as the heads of the household, then mothers, then children, and so forth. Again, this human behavior is biological.
Oh, guys, you guys know what just happened, right? Hold on.
And these families have a natural hierarchy with...
You guys know what I'm going to bring up now, right? He keeps saying natural hierarchy, natural this, natural that, right? You guys know what I'm going to bring up? Hold on. What is it that he's doing right now? What is it that he's doing?
Fathers as the heads of the household, and family relations beyond just husband and wife. Science and anthropology...
I want to see you guys mentioning it before I bring it up, because you guys have been trained on these streams to know what's happening here.
Say that humans have this deeply rooted biological drive to come together in families, and these families have a natural hierarchy with fathers as the heads of the household, then mothers, then children, and so forth. Again, this human behavior...
This is nobody appeal to...
is biologically rooted, and his...
Biologically rooted? Come on, guys. Anybody?
Historians and anthropologists point out that the same patriarchal family structure is found in 99% of human societies historically, including Islamic societies. But human rights...
There we go. Susie got it. It's an appeal to nature fallacy. Yes. Good job, Suze. Of course, Suze is going to be the one who mentions it. Hold on. Okay, so let's learn this together. The appeal to nature. What is this? It says okay, so this is what you do if you appeal to nature. What you're doing is you argue that because something is natural, it is therefore valid, justified, inevitable, good, or ideal. Many natural things are also considered good, and this can bias our thinking. But naturalness itself doesn't make something good or bad. For instance, murder could be seen as very natural, but that doesn't mean it's good or justifiable. Yeah, also being attacked by a tiger and eaten alive, that's also very natural. Example, I'm not going to give this example. YouTube is going to think I'm spreading medical misinformation. Just pause and read this example, okay? YouTube's algorithm be dumb.
Extremism.
Nature, yes, you guys. Okay.
Says no. This kind of patriarchy with men over women violates the principle of equality. Men and women should all have the same authority, the same roles, and everything has to be exactly equal. This is not only an attack.
Nobody, see, again, everything has to be exactly equal. These guys are, so this is again what a trick that Daniel plays, is that he looks at right-leaning people's criticism of far lefty people, and then he tries to portray far lefties philosophy on the world as if that is what human rights advocacy means, right? As if that is the entire modern world is advocating for the things that far left advocates are advocating. Not even the left advocates absolute equality. So I, don't, and the interesting thing is that a lot of people notice some like crazy values coming out of the far left, fringe far lefty groups, and they're like, oh yeah, that is a problem, and there is a problem. And because they agree that that is a problem, they don't notice that Daniel is just like in front of their eyes. It's just that he's connecting that with all of modernity and all of human rights advocacy. And you're like, wait, what? No, that's just them. What does that got to do with all of modernity? And this is interesting. This is coming from a group of people that constantly say, don't judge all of Islam by the actions of a few Muslims, which I very much agree with. But they have to be very familiar with how that is done when so many people use ISIS and Al Qaeda or Taliban as a way to be like, how, I mean, actually Daniel maybe doesn't disagree that much with Taliban yet, but at least ISIS and Al Qaeda, a lot of people might be like, oh, look at these. This is what Islam represents. And Muslims are like, hey, no, that's just them. So you should be very familiar with how this is done. So I don't understand how you don't get when Daniel is using far lefty narrative to show far lefty narrative as a way to dismiss all of modernity and all of progress and all of human rights advocacy. You don't notice that what's happening here? Do you guys not notice what's happening here?
Attack on Islamic law. This is an attack on human biology itself. This is an attack on 99% of world cultures which do have patriarchal family structures. And the result of this human rights extremism that has been forced onto the whole world for the past 200 years is that families are being destroyed. Again, I will share, inshallah, more information to justify all these points. But the main point is
what he had. Okay, so here's the thing. Families are on the decline, and we could analyze why that's happening. But he needs to go. Another trick that he plays here, I don't know. I shouldn't say trick because that might suggest that he's doing it on purpose, and I don't know if he's doing it on purpose. Okay, but another thing that you need to be aware of is that he keeps suggesting that every bad trend is because of the advocacy for human rights. So he goes and finds everything that is wrong with the world and any of them that is modern problems with the world, right? And he's like, oh, look, human rights advocacy has gone up, and this problem has also gone up. So related, correlated, and caused, sealed, no, wait, you have to, just because two things go up at the same time doesn't mean one is causing the other. So he shouldn't, but he seems to think just showing that these things are rising problems by itself is good enough to show that human rights is causing them. I mean, more. I mean, if you want to play that game, there are more things that are going well than things that are going bad. Like, guys, you know how insane it is to assume that modernity is solving everything and there are no problems, no new problems that we have to deal with right now that we didn't have to deal with in ancient times. Like, obviously, we're going to have new problems that were irrelevant before and are new now. Overall, our lives are going to has improved significantly. Do we have new problems? Are there things that we need to address, that we need to fix that we didn't have before? Yes. But what you can do, what Daniel does, it goes and highlights every single one of these modern problems, and he tries to say that this is the it would be more acceptable if he said this is because of modernity, because they are because of modernity. Modern lives, modern problems, right? But also modern solutions, right? That's one claim. Okay, yes, modernity causes new problems. It solves a lot of problems, but it also causes some problems. The only way to get out of it is with using actual modernity's tools. But it's the insane claim that is being made here is the specific part of modernity, which is the activism for human rights, that is the cause of these problems. That is an insane claim, and it's an extraordinary evidence. And he doesn't seem to think that there is any proof needed for that beyond just showing that they're both going up. We'll address each one of these problems as they come up, like as throughout the future episodes. But again, that's what he appeals to. This is going up. That's going again. The classic examples, which I think I came up with, and everybody else picked up. And I think, but people tell me that that's not crazy. Maybe it's a false memory. But I will refuse to believe this. Okay, I believe that I came up with this example, and everybody else picked it up. Okay, so this is my example. Okay, the classic example is, I don't know if this is true. Okay, is ice cream consumption goes and people drowning go up at the same time, right? Every time people consume more ice cream, more people seem to drown. Is the natural conclusion that ice cream consumption causes death? No, it does cause death. It causes drowning? No, there is an external variable. There's an external variable that is independently increasing both of them. This is why we always say correlation doesn't cause causation. What is the external variable that is increasing both ice cream consumption and drowning? Anybody in the live chat? Come on, guys, you can do this. So every time ice cream consumption goes up, people drown more often. What is the external factor? Does that mean this obviously doesn't mean that one is causing the other one, right? So what is the external variable here that is not being taken into account? Come on, guys, you can do this. Anybody in the live chat? You guys are slow. Yes, thank you. Awesome. It's heat. It's heat. Okay? When it's summertime, people consume more ice cream and people swim more often. So people obviously, when the weather gets warmer, when people swim more often, more people end up drowning. So it's not the ice cream consumption that is causing the drowning, is the weather that is independently increasing both of them. And that's why they're correlated. And that correlation doesn't mean that one is causing the other one. Yes, summer. Yes, warm outside. You guys got it. It's summer. It's summer.
Is that marriage, family, community, and even the human race itself, these are things that have a deep-rooted biological basis. Islamic
appeal to nature fallacy.
Law preserves and protects these things by setting the proper balance with individual liberties and equality and other important values. Modern human rights, in contrast, destroys marriage, destroys family, destroys community in all traditional cultures and the human race overall, because it puts...
Wow. Okay, citation needed. Look at it. He says we're extremists, and look at this. Look at the claim here. I hope there's some proof for this. Okay, let's see if there. Do you guys think there's going to be any proof for any of these claims? So human rights is going to
use modern human rights, in contrast, destroys marriage,
destroys marriage,
destroys family,
destroys family. Even though, guys, didn't I just show you that the Human Rights Declaration had a couple of articles specifically showing you how important family is, how it's the unit that builds the unit that is the entire society is built upon. Okay, so apparently not according to the Declaration of Human Rights. It seems like family is that the Declaration of Human Rights declares that the state needs to be involved in the protection of family. So he's wrong about that.
Destroys community,
even though there are a whole bunch of articles there, not only protecting communities, but also protecting religious communities. That's within the Declaration of Human Rights.
All traditional cultures and the human race overall.
Wait, did he just say what?
Destroys family, destroys community and all traditional cultures and the human race overall. Because
I don't know what you mean. Is he saying human rights destroy the human race overall? Oh no, or is he saying the human race overall has
family, destroys community and all traditional cultures and the human race overall.
Did he just say that human rights destroys the human race overall? Is that what he's saying? I don't understand.
Because it puts individual liberty and equality above all else.
Well, we just saw that you wanted more limitations on individual liberty and equality, and Human Rights Declaration involves that limitations. Susanna is saying, "Yup." yeah, guys. Human rights destroys humanity, the human race as a whole. Okay, we'll see about that. I hope that's an extraordinary claim. Hopefully, there's some evidence for these claims, Daniel.
The question is, does Harris believe in balance, or is he the extremist? Let's call this the balance question.
Well, the balance question apparently is not even a question because, yeah, we just went over the most famous human rights declaration on the planet, and at least that one included a lot of balance. And me as an advocate for, I don't know Harris's views on this, but yes, I believe in limitations. I believe on limitations on your freedom, and I am very pro human rights. But who are these imaginary people that Daniel is like? Who are these people? Like, how many human rights advocates out there that are thinking that, oh yeah, there should be no limitations to your freedom, everything goes, no limitations at all? Like, this is such a straw man.
Ultimately, Harris would be lying if he said that his problem is solely with Islam. He should be honest.
Harris would be lying if he had said his problem was solely with Islam. Well, good thing he's not saying that, Daniel. Like, he should be honest. Well, he is. He constantly says that all religions are bad. Like, have you not watched any of his videos? Like, how are you like? I mean, you don't have to, but at least don't assume. He should be honest. Well, yeah, he is honest.
The problems he has with Islam violating human rights, he has with all traditional cultures and religions that live.
Look, he's like, even here, he's like, yes, I do. Like, oh, he should be like, why is he keep making it? Why is he making it seem like this is a lie that we're like, oh, we only have a problem with Islam? We don't hold back against other religions. And he's like, even here, he's like, he should be honest. He should be like, the problems he has with Islam would be also a problem that he has with other religions. And Harris is like, yeah. He's like, no.
Limit individual liberty for the sake of protecting marriage, family, and community. Religions that limit Islam violating human rights, he has with all traditional cultures and religions that limit individual liberty for the sake of protecting marriage, family, and community. Harris should be honest. Instead of saying human rights versus Sharia, he should say human rights versus literally every traditional culture and religion in the world.
Yeah.
Lie number 3.
Okay, here's the thing. Only the parts of those traditions that are against human rights. Okay? So, for example, Islam, Sharia violates human rights. So we're against those parts of Sharia that are against human rights. Are we against Islamic calligraphy? No, I actually love Islamic calligraphy, Arabic calligraphy. Are we against Islamic architecture? No, it's beautiful. It's gorgeous. Please keep them, okay? Are we against... Oh, here's an interesting thing. Are we against Sufi dervishes the swirling dervishes, the dances that they do? Guess what? No, I'm not. That's Islamic. I'm not against that. Guess who's against that? Daniel is against that. Daniel is against that. Okay? So it's like, oh, you're against tradition. No, Daniel, you. In fact, it's Islam. So we just say that if something is traditional, you shouldn't keep it just because it's traditional. If it's harmful, even though it's traditional, we're gonna have to get rid of. I'm sorry, not sorry, but we have to get rid of it. Okay, it's harmful. But the rest, tradition, the ones that traditional food, traditional clothing, traditional art, traditional dances, traditional poetry, traditional anything, not harmful, beautiful, keep it. In fact, I, as an atheist, enjoy everything, all rituals and all traditions that is not promoting anything that violates human rights and is not spreading superstition. If it's just the art itself, just the tradition itself, just the food itself, I love that. Keep it, encourage it, spread it. In fact, change it, play with it, mix it up with other traditions, do whatever you want with it. I'm not against any of that. Okay, so we're not anti-tradition for the sake of just being anti-tradition. And we're also, but on the other hand, we don't also think that it's okay for you to say something should remain just because it's tradition. Okay, we evaluate whether it's harmful or not, and we decide to keep it or not. However, Sharia and is actually against tradition. Many traditions for the main reason that they're not Islamic. So this is not, in fact, not because it's harmful or not, or it's just because it's like shirk, right? Idol worship, or the things that they would consider, violating the concept of Tawhid in Islam, right? So me as an atheist, if I see dervishes that are doing their dance thingy, right, and I look at it in the mosque and I'm like, oh my God, that's beautiful. I like to see that. Yeah, thank you very much. But I don't know, the Wahhabis or the Salafis are like, oh, we're against that tradition, even though it's not harming anybody. Okay, the Sufi teachings are harmful. The Sufi ideology is harmful, but not the art, not the dancing. We can keep that. That's enjoyable, right? So yeah, actually, so what I'm saying is that we are for removing some traditions, but so is Islamic values. So is Sharia. Sharia is also, again, for removing certain traditions. The difference is what we base it on. So we base it on removing traditions that are harmful. They are focused on removing traditions that are un-Islamic. So again, it's not based on who does it. It's based on who does it based on what.
What is the difference between Harris Sultan and European colonizers? What is the difference between
I could think of many differences. Like, I don't think Harris has murdered anyone yet. I think Harris hasn't committed, as far as I know, correct me if I'm live chat, correct me if I'm wrong. As far as I know, Harris Sultan hasn't yet committed genocide. Maybe I'm wrong about this.
The difference between Harris Sultan and European colonizers? What is the difference between Harris Sultan and the neocons in Washington who pushed for the murderous invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan 20 years?
The Harris Sultan hasn't dropped bombs on people? That's another difference.
Years ago, and continue to agitate for human rights in the Muslim world today. What is the difference? Let's call this the colonial question.
What the hell? Guys, you know what this is, right? This is another logical fallacy. This is the logical fallacy that I always have a problem with pronouncing. You know which one it is, right? Actually, this is it a version of the... Actually, this is not even the I always have a problem with this one. Okay, I'll just put it here. But I don't know if it's that one, because this is not even something that Harris believes in or does. Like, Harris is not a colonialist, or he's not like a neocon. So I don't know what it's not even this fallacy. What is even this? Is like a new fallacy. Like, it's not. It's accusing of. It's a mix of whataboutism and strawman. What is it when you mix whataboutism with strawman? Because this is not even. Hold on. Let me see if he clarifies.
Because all the arguments Harris brings against Muslims in Afghanistan or Pakistan or anywhere else, all of those exact same arguments have been used by European colonizers historically against not only Muslims, but against Native Americans, against Africans, against Aboriginals, against the Chinese. When Harris says
it's false analogy, actually, because he's saying that Harris is exactly like the colonizers and the neocons who wanted to like start a war, because he says something that they also say. Yeah, actually, this is false analogy, because that, it's kind of like as ridiculous as saying you drink water. Well, then, I almost said a bad word. You drink water, Stalin drink water, you are Stalin. You are exactly like Stalin. So you're saying that the people who were doing the colonizers and the neocons, yeah, this is a faulty analogy. They make similar arguments to Harris, so you are exactly the same as them. Guys, I'm not putting words in his mouth. This is actually what he said. Let me see if it's true. Let me make sure I'm not misrepresenting Daniel here.
As Muslims abuse women in Afghanistan 20 years ago and continue to agitate for human rights in the Muslim world today. What is the difference? Let's call this the colonial question.
He's like, what's the difference? Like, suggesting there is no difference between Harris and those people.
Because all the arguments Harris brings against Muslims in Afghanistan or Pakistan or anywhere else, all of those exact same arguments have been used by European colonizers historically against not only Muslims.
Guys, I don't know about Harris, but we argue against Islam, not against Muslims. But let's continue.
But against Native Americans, against Africans, against Aboriginals, against the Chinese. When Harris says Muslims abuse women because they practice polygamy, that exact same argument was used by American settlers in the 18th and 19th century to dehumanize Native Americans and justify genociding them.
Wait, so you don't get to highlight women abuse against women, because if you highlight abuse against women, first of all, I'm not against polygamy. I don't know what he's talking about. I mean, human rights doesn't say that you can't do polygamy. You can do polygamy if you want to do, if as long as there's consent. Human rights, as far as I know, is not against polygamy. In fact, the only limitation is consent. You could do polygamy if you want to do polygamy, right?
When Harris says Muslim,
but let's say this to make it stronger. Let's say, for example, we say, oh, there's women rights abuses in, I don't know, in Afghanistan or in Iran or in Saudi Arabia or Bangladesh, right? He says, when you say that, you sound like the colonialists who did genocide. So therefore, you are exactly like the people who did genocide. Guys, like, do I even need to? This is so insanely stupid. I don't even know if I can. Like, is it even necessary to mention how stupid this is? This is kind of like saying, the Nazis, they believed in evolution. They believed in the survival of the fittest. And look where that got them. Therefore, anybody who believes in evolution is like the Nazis, right? Actually, here's a better example. Hey, guys, if you're a Muslim and you're watching this, you should be very sensitive about this, what Daniel is saying, because a lot of you have had the experience, I'm assuming, with people saying, at least hearing that people suggest that, well, you're Muslim and your advocacy for Islam, you're advocating for Islam. You know who else advocated for Islam? ISIS, Al Qaeda. So we're pretty much the same. Do you guys see, like, if you're a Muslim and you can see how ridiculous it is for somebody to suggest that if you're a Muslim and you're pro-Islam and ISIS and Al Qaeda are also pro-Islam and therefore you are the same as them, if you as a Muslim can tell how ridiculous that suggestion is, but you can't tell how ridiculous it is for Daniel to suggest that Harris, it seems to be pro-human rights, and it's the arguments for human rights were used by colonialists and neocons to commit violations of human rights violations, okay? And because of that, Harris is exactly the same as them. If you can't tell why the Islam example is wrong, obviously wrong, and you can't tell why what Daniel is saying here is wrong, if you can't see how similar these arguments are, then maybe you're just tribal and biased, and you're just like rooting for your team instead of actually trying to objectively decide who's telling the truth here. So there's like, I don't know, man. Seemed like a slam dunk to me. Oh my god, this is like, yeah, like Queen Singh sounds like some pretty grade school stuff. How is this even an argument, Daniel? Harris is this exactly the same as a colonialist because he's advocating for human rights. Do you know what is the problem with all the crimes committed by like the neocons and the colonialists that you mentioned? Is the fact that they were violating human rights. If anything, you want more human rights to stop stuff like that. You're like, oh yeah, human rights will lead to people attacking Muslims. Actually, no, that's a violation of the Muslims' human rights. That's actually it's the opposite, Daniel. It is the opposite. Advocating for human rights would mean that we would be against those things.
Muslims are barbaric because they use corporal punishments against criminals. That exact same argument was used by the European colonial empire against the African tribes they genocided. The real question is, does Harris...
That's a human rights violation. We're against it. That's human rights violation. They weren't... Yeah, advocacy for human rights means that you're against actions like this.
Think the colonial project was a good thing? After all, colonialism was... think the colonial project...
I really wish Harris was like saying no here, like, or shaking his head, like, at least if he can't interrupt, go like this. Like, he went like this before. I wish he was like saying like no. Like, I wish it was like, guys, you need like, we need to like be very outspoken about, because we keep getting accused of endorsing many, because we're anti-Islam. We constantly get accused by a lot of Muslims that being for things that we're not. So we need to be a little bit louder. Well, actually, not a little bit, a lot louder when it comes to calling out human rights violations of things that are not Islamic, right? I mean, just not even for the sake. Actually, it doesn't even matter if they actually use that against us. Just for the sake of supporting human rights, we do need. I mean, if you're for human rights, it makes sense for you to constantly highlight human rights violations everywhere, right? I mean, I guess no. I guess you can have a focus on a certain thing. Never mind. But I choose to highlight as much as I can, right?
Was a good thing? After
like,
all,
when is he getting this? Is such a straw man. Where has correct me if I'm wrong in the live chat? Has Harris suggested that the genocide of like natives and other people by colonizers was a good thing? Like, has Harris ever suggested that?
Against the African tribes they genocided. The real question is, does Harris think the colonial project was a good thing? After all, colonialism is what brought modern human rights to all these different parts of the world.
Yeah, but that's not human rights. What is that got to do with human rights? That's a violation. Yeah, he's like, oh, well, this is what the colonialists did. And that's a violation of human rights. What does this got to do with human rights being bad?
The West invading and occupying the world to bring freedom and democracy isn't something that just happened in Iraq and Afghanistan. It's something that's been happening for over 200 years.
I mean, just because they're saying that they're pro human rights and democracy, that doesn't make them, you know, like, oh, like he talks about these forces that went there to promote human rights, and then in fact, they violated human rights. Does that mean human rights is wrong, or does that mean what they were saying is not true? I mean, just because somebody says that we're here to bring democracy, that doesn't mean they're actually bringing democracy and human rights. I mean, if that was the case, then, you guys know what the official name of North Korea is? What is the official name of North Korea? This is actually a good example for anybody who thinks like, well, they said they are here for human rights. They said they're here because they wanted to bring democracy. What is the official name of here? Here's the world's greatest joke. North Korea officially did Democratic People's Republic of Korea. North Korea, everyone. North Korea, the least democratic country on the goddamn planet, is named, the official name of it is the Democratic People. Yes, Susie got it in live chat. Okay, I mean, that tells you a lot about the value of saying it. You're bringing democracy or human rights. Okay, we don't support anybody. We don't support the actions of everybody who claims to be like. If we were like, oh, you said democracy, you're supporting it, then we should be for North Korea. Then, if that's what it took, if supporting human rights means that we will unconditionally just support anybody that mentions democracy or human rights without actually like evaluating what they do, that would mean advocacy for human rights would mean that we should also be promoting like, yeah, North Korea, look at amazing, best country in the world. I mean, look at, they have democratic in their name. That's all it takes, apparently.
If Harris thinks human rights are so amazing, then does he think it was a good thing that Africa was colonized or Latin America? Does he think it was a good thing that India was colonized? No. Was it colonialism that brought his own Muslim ancestors in the subcontinent to the light of reason and human rights? So Harris, my question is simple. Clearly, the world is not going to freely choose human rights. History has definitively proven that, and Afghanistan is...
Has it? Has it? Has it? We have the first time. Okay, so human rights were popularized many times in history, sometimes in response to wars, sometimes in response to certain philosophies being popularized. And a lot of times it was in response to war, not because it was forced on a community, but because people were horrified about what war can do. And then after the war, they willingly were looking for alternatives. Like, there's 3 examples of human rights that actually are the most becoming more prevalent. The 3 most famous times in history, they were all people accepting it because they were, not by force, but by, willingly. Okay, so one example is in the 1800s in Western Europe, certain philosophers their ideas became more and more popular. It wasn't that these philosophers were like forcing their opinions upon people, but their ideas became, mainstream because of how good they were. So that's one example. The most important spread of human rights was after World War II because of how horrified the entire planet was about what happened. And the ideas of enlightenment became a lot more popular then in response to trying to avoid something like that happening again. The earliest example that it might seem like I'm saying this because I'm Persian, guys, I'm not, okay? This is just history, okay? I'm not like, I don't have like national pride or any crap like that, okay? And Daniel should also know this, he's Persian. The earliest example that happened was Cyrus the Great. His Cyrus's cylinder, which I went and saw in London, is dubbed as the earliest declaration of human rights. Okay, and that was actually Cyrus's. That was like 300 BC, right? Yeah, I think so. Wait, was it 300 or 500? But yeah, so that was not him forcing human rights upon that was actually the other way. He was like trying to use it as a way for people to be more accepting of letting him rule them, right? So it was actually a marketing tactic, like for people to open their gates, like when like the doors of Babylon, like people were like, yes, we're tired of the people who ruling us, come over, like please, you're a better king, we want you. So it just actually, it was actually used as a tactic to do less war, not more war. So more people will stand down against his rule to avoid going to conflict with him. That was a PR strategy by him, right? Gaussian saying the Persian Empire will rise again just for a few more thousand years, right? So yeah, so he's saying like that's the only way. It's not actually the only way. In fact, it's not. It's actually the method that he's suggesting for spreading human rights is the failed way. We have seen how big of a failure that method is in recent history, at least. Yeah, like we just saw in Afghanistan, how we saw in Iran. Actually, so the willing way, like just promoting these ideas and see who takes it, that has been time and time again shown to be a good method. Like I'm not making any absolute statements because we need data for that, right? But it's not as absolute as Daniel makes it seem. Like we have a lot of examples for showing the spread of human rights with advocacy, right? Like some of the examples of human rights advocacy, I mean, Nelson Mandela comes into mind, right? Gandhi comes into mind. Again, I'm not endorsing everything Gandhi said or did, okay? But when it comes to peaceful resistance, that was a major advocacy of human rights that did not involve promoting violence or forcing human rights upon everyone. One of the most famous in the United States, a famous example is Martin Luther King and his peaceful resistance. I mean, all the civil rights movements in the past 100 years in the United States, they were all peaceful advocacy. Most of it was peaceful advocacy, civil disobedience. Actually, another great example is the civil rights movements of the past 100 years in the United States had major success in promoting human rights. That didn't involve forcing human rights upon anyone. That was like advocacy, right? The examples that I could think of failure of trying to spread modernity and these Enlightenment values were Reza Shah from Iran, the first of the Pahlavi dynasty. I mean, he was very successful at bringing modernity when it comes to technology and economics and education, and that's aspect of it what he was successful. But when it comes to values, he tried to force it upon his people, and that was a major failure, right? Ataturk tried to force modern values on his people. Again, Ataturk was also successful when it came to economics, when it came to promoting education and stuff like that. He was very successful, but when it comes to forcing secularization of his people, which is actually a contradiction, that was a major failure. I mean, look at where Iran is now when it comes to Islamism, and Turkey when it comes to Islamism. So these are failures, right? It seems to me that we have plenty of examples. And Afghanistan, right? United States trying to force modernity and modern values upon a nation by military enforcement and like bringing troops there. We see how big of a failure nation building has become. So it seems like actually what Daniel is saying, that the only way is to force this upon these people. Actually, that's not the case. We have plenty of examples of how the forcing tactic fails, and we have plenty of examples of how advocacy and peaceful resistance and civil disobedience, we have plenty of examples of that actually succeeding. So Daniel is trying to portray that he there's so very little problems with human rights that the only way Daniel could make it seem like it's all wrong is to suggest that the only way to promote human rights is through things like the crimes of neocons or the crimes of the colonizers and stuff like that. He's trying to make it a one-on-one thing as if there's no other alternative, because that's the only way I think that you could make human rights look bad. Does that make sense, guys? Does that make sense?
Argument was used by American settlers in the 18th and 19th century to dehumanize nations.
How dumb of an argument this is. Like, how stupid do you have to be? Daniel, I really thought you're better than this. Like, oh, the arguments you're making, some really, really bad people said the same thing. Adolf H loved animals. Do you love your dog? Adolf H also loved his dogs. Then you're literally him. Again, I'm not saying the H word because you have to be sensitive. He also liked paintings. This is such a lame argument. This is like, oh my God. You have to be so unaware of how good arguments are made and what logical fallacies are. Like Daniel, I know Daniel is better than this because he watches other people debate. He consumes a lot of content from the right, from the left, from Islamists, from anti-Islam advocates. He must know that just drawing, like, oh, you say this, and those people also said this, then you're literally the same as them, is the dumbest argument you can make here. Like, how is this not apparent to him?
Native Americans and justify abuse women because they practice polygamy. That exact same argument was used by American settlers in the 18th and 19th century to dehumanize Native Americans and justify genociding them. When Harris says,
Harris, you're pro-genocide because you said something that they also said. You're pro-genocide.
Muslims are barbaric because they use corporal punishments against criminals. That exact same argument was used by the European colonial empire against the African tribes they genocided. The real question is, does Harris think the colonial project was a good thing? After all, colonialism is what brought modern human rights to all these different parts of the world. The West invading.
I just gave you a little examples of people advocacy for it being a way that succeeds. So,
and occupying the world to bring freedom and democracy isn't something that just happened in Iraq and Afghanistan. It's something that's been happening for over 200 years. If Harris thinks human rights are so amazing, then does he think it was a good thing that Africa was colonized or Latin America? Does he think it was a good thing that India was colonized? Wasn't it colonialism that brought...
Oh, Daniel, I don't think you want to bring up colonizing India. Ooh, I don't think you want to bring up colonizing India as an example for why human rights are bad. Guys, do you know? You guys know where I'm going with this, right? You guys know where I'm going with this in live chat. Colonizing India bad, therefore human rights bad. Where am I going with this? Come on, guys. We have mountains named after this. You know what I'm talking about? You guys know what Hindu Kush means? Oh yeah, look at this. Sus, right when I said it. Susanna's honest. She knows what I'm talking about. He never heard of the Hindu Kush. Guys, first of all, this is such an easy comeback for me. This is too easy. Daniel, you're making this way too easy. India, guys, other than Muslims, who are the greatest victims of the Islamic Empire? Who have been, when it comes to body counts and the number of people killed because of Islamic empire building, Islamic colonialism, Islamic colonialism, who are the people who suffered the most from the expansion of Islamic ideology? Yes, Susanna is there. It was the Hindus. So it's amazing. Daniel, say that one more time. Hold on.
His own Muslim was a good thing. Does he think it was a good thing that Africa was colonized or Latin America? Does he think it was a good thing that India was colonized?
Does he think it was a good thing that India was colonized? India was colonized by who, Daniel? Was India colonized only by the British? Who was there before, Daniel? And who committed more crimes when they were there? Guys, Hindu Kush, the number, okay, how many Indians were killed because of the Islamic colonial expansion in India? The rivers of blood. Guys, Hindu Kush means, I can't even say it because I might get triggered. The Hindu Kush Mountains is named Hindu Kush because of the sheer number of Hindus that were killed there. That's how they had to name a mountain because the number of people who were slaughtered. That's how big of an issue. Guys, does anybody have the numbers of the number of Hindus that were killed by by Muslims when they took over India? And the interesting thing is that unlike the British colonizers, right, who invaded India, which did commit a lot of crimes, but their actions is not in accordance to human rights. I showed you here. Let me bring this up again. The Declaration of Human Rights. Do I have it still? Oh yeah, I do. Article number 5. Article number 5. No one shall be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment. Okay? There are many other articles here that what happened, the British colonizing India and everything they did was a violation of everything that we consider human rights. Not just modern human rights, but even the human rights of the late 1800s. I mean, not all of 1800s, actually. No, 1700s. 1800s. Yeah. 17 and 1800s, right? So it even violates that. But the Islamic Empire killing a lot of Hindus, does that violate Islamic values? I mean, okay, let's just say for the sake of argument, the British Empire represents human rights for some bizarre reason, okay? They're like, oh, everything that the British Empire did was endorsed by human rights, which it doesn't. It was in complete contradiction to human rights. Their crimes is a complete contradiction to what is human rights. But let's just say, like, nope, just going out and like committing genocide and of the natives, that is human rights, apparently, according to Daniel. Okay, let's say the British Empire, everything that the British Empire did is a representation of what human rights is, and British Empire crimes in India means human rights is horrible. Okay, all right. So that line of reasoning, can we apply that to the Islamic Empire? Can we apply that to Islamic colonization of India and the crimes that the Muslim armies committed in India and the number of Hindus that they killed in India? Would that logic not follow that Islam is also horrible? I don't know why you're going there, Daniel. This doesn't look good for you. This is such an own goal. Like, this is the crimes that the Islamic Empire committed in India is astronomically higher than what the British Empire did. The body count alone is astronomically higher. Cal is saying, I think the figure is more like 60 million to 400 is gross. 400 million is a gross exaggeration. Okay, 60 million. Some people are saying 100 million, 400 million of Hindus killed. Some people are saying 60 million. What is that? How many Hindus were killed? Is there a number? Can we get a quick number? Give me a total number. Google, don't fail me. I can't read all these articles. I just need a quick number. Okay, nobody. Okay, I failed to give you a quick number. Okay, but it's in the millions. If anybody could look that up, let me know. Somebody could get a Somebody saying 60 million. Okay. Anyways, it's huge. It's huge. Big enough to name mountains after it. Right? So, yeah. So 3 points. No, actually 2 points. Yeah. No, 3 points. One is that the British Empire, all the crimes that they committed, Daniel is trying to make it seem like they are the enforcement of human rights. They weren't. They're in violation of human rights. Second of all, if that line of reasoning can be used to say human rights is bad, that line of reasoning can be used to say Islam is bad. So don't use India as an example, maybe, Daniel. Third, what Muslims were doing in India was, at least arguably, more in line with Islam. What the British were doing in India was in contradiction to human rights, but in Islam, the protection, what is understood, this is Islamic teaching, that the people that you conquer, the ones you don't get to kill, are, say with me in the live chat, Ahlul Kitab, the people of the book. When you invade, when Islam, this is not an example of Muslims doing something that was not in accordance to Islam. This is Islamic. What they did, what the Muslims did when they invaded India, all the Muslims they killed. YouTube, I'm talking about history. I'm not endorsing anything. Please don't give me a strike. Okay, YouTube gods, let us all pray to the YouTube gods. Please do not strike us down. I'm just talking about what happened in history. Okay, I'm not endorsing of any of this, right? I'm not endorsing any of this. What happened? So in Islam, when you conquer a people, the people that you need to protect, the people that you can't just kill willy-nilly, are Ahlul Kitab. Ahlul Kitab means Christians and Jews. So the Christians and Jews, they get the demi-status, right? So the Muslims get the highest status. The Christians and Jews, Muslims, because they're people of the book, because they're Abrahamic faith, because they're Ahlul Kitab, Muslims are not allowed to kill them. They either, the Christians and Jews, they either convert to Islam, or they can willingly leave the land that is now Islamic, or they could stay as Christians and Jews and practice their religion without advocating for it, without promoting it, while paying an extra tax for it, and even enjoy protection by the Islamic army. Okay, so that is Islamic teaching. However, you don't get that protection if you're not Ahlul Kitab. You are to be massacred, right? In fact, this was a problem when the Arab army invaded Persia, because it would be too costly for them to consider Persians, the Zoroastrian Persians, as not Ahlul Kitab at that time. That would have led to a massacre that the Islamic army would have not been able to, at least the Arab army at that point, would not have been able to. They needed a justification for ruling over Persia rather than massacring everybody. So a lot of argumentations were presented that maybe Zoroastrianism is another religion that could be considered the people of the book, right? Ahlul Kitab means people of the book. And they argued that this is not what Zoroastrians are doing. Maybe it's not idol worship. Maybe these people seem to have a book. They have a book. They seem to be worshiping one God. They have one God. They have a book. Maybe they're Ahlul Kitab. So they try to make some leeway for the Persians, so that considers Zoroastrians, maybe, like, there were like competing arguments. I'm not saying all Muslims were saying the same thing, right? But there needed to be some excuses for not massacring all of Persia, right? However, when they reached India, they were like, oh, these guys are idol worshippers. Like, they're literally worshiping idols. Like, these be idols, right? Like, this is what the Quraysh used to do. We can't like pretend like, the Zoroastrians are like, the fire, they're not worshiping the fire. That's not an idol. It's just fire. Fire, they're not worshiping it. And they have a book, and they seem to have one God. I mean, okay, technically they have a good God and a bad God, but they're worshiping only one of it. So they're doing Tawheed. They're the people of the they're people of the book. We don't need to massacre them. But when you reach India and you just see idols everywhere, like, you guys are worshiping. There's no way to dress this up. This is idol worship. This is idol. Your blood is halal. Your blood is halal. All right, so we'll see. But hey, YouTube, I'm not saying that. This is my representation of history, okay? Anyways, let's continue.
What?
Oh, here, let me see. Some people are giving me some numbers. Guys, make sure you tag Atheist Republic if you want me to see something in the live chat. Okay, so somebody is like quoting something from a book saying bringing the Hindu population down from 600 million to 200 million at the time. Okay, that doesn't mean that they were all massacred. Just thus the numbers have ranged from 80 million to so the number ranged from 80 million to 400 million, but no one can be sure what the number is close to, but probably close to 200 million Indians wiped out. Okay, so the lowest number I've seen you guys quoted from different sources is 60 million. Okay, so at least 60 million. Let's go with at least 60 million, all the way up to 400 million, and probably closer to 200 million. If this is correct. Yeah, and this is at the time when the population of the world was much less, like 500. The population of the world was 500 million at the time. What, really? That seems crazy. Okay, guys, I'm not sure if these numbers, like, that's a high that means like a huge person. Okay, I don't know if these numbers are correct, so somebody don't quote us on this. If you know better numbers, please leave it in the comment section. But that would mean that at least 10% of the world population were massacred. I think that doesn't seem right. Yeah, and Adam is saying, 60 million is basically, the hollow in World War II. I'm not saying the H word, the big H, because YouTube might like see that as a trigger word. But that was basically at least 60 million Hindus being killed in India by the Islamic Empire. That's 10 times what happened in the concentration camps in World War II. Actually, no, guys, we shouldn't do this. We should be better than this. 6 million were only the Jews. Let us not forget all the people who were gassed in the gas chambers that were. Let us not forget the gypsies. Let us not forget the political descendants, the activists, the LGBT people that were killed. Let us not forget there are a lot of LGBT, a lot of gypsies, and a lot of other people who were just dissenting. They were also killed during the big H, right? I think the actual number is 9 million, so it's not 6 million. Okay, so it's important to remember those people as well. Okay.
Wasn't it colonialism that brought his?
Yes, and the Russians. Yeah, many Russians as well.
Own Muslim and thing that India was colonized.
I heard like we shouldn't say gypsies. Isn't the actual name Romanas? I know it's not Romanian. I know they are Romanian, but I know there's a better term for gypsies than gypsies.
Wasn't it colonialism?
Yeah, thank you. Romani people. Thank you, Secularity. Yeah.
That brought his own Muslim ancestors in the subcontinent to the light of reason and human rights. So, Harris, my question is simple. Clearly, the world is not going to freely choose human rights. History has
clearly the world is not going to freely choose human rights, even though we have so many examples of it. We have so many examples. I mean, the most recent example was the civil rights movement in the United States, which without, it was enforced upon America. In fact, if there was any force, it was by the government against it.
has definitively proven that, and Afghanistan is only the most recent example. If you really want people to abandon their religions, abandon their ways of life, their cultural heritage, and replace them with human rights, you have to force them. And
it really, if you wanted people to leave their religion and support human rights, you have to force them. No, Daniel, do you know which country, one of the leading countries in the world right now, that people are leaving their religion, leaving Islam? Again, I'm going to seem like such a simp for Iran right now because of all this. I'm not, guys. I'm not like a nationalist or anything like that. But in Iran, half of it's okay. Hold on, look at this. Here, let me actually show you guys. You want to see the number? Oh, yeah, 40%. Here. So, in fact, if anything, the force is on the other way around. For example, in Iran, people are being if there's any force, is the force for people to adhere to their religion, right? What people are doing willingly, what people desires are, is to leave religion, right? So you can see Iran's secular shift. New survey reveals huge changes in religious beliefs. Like he's saying, like, you need to force. The only way for you to get people to leave their religion is by forcing them. No, the force seems to be the other way around. The force seems to be trying to keep people in their religion. What people are willing, what people desire, is secular values, human rights, leaving their religion, right? So again, I'm not saying always, but what Daniel is suggesting is that that's the only way that you could get people to accept these values, right? Let me actually look at some numbers. Guys, you have no idea how extreme. Okay, so here are the numbers. Several dramatic changes in Iran's Iranian religiosity, and by the way, Daniel is Iranian like me, so he should know this. With an increase in secularization and a diversity of faiths and beliefs, compared with Iran's 1995 99.5 census figures. This is Iran's official census figures collected by the government, but these are the results were collected based on polling. We found that only 40% of Iranians identified as Muslim. Only 40% of Iranians have now identified as Muslims. That means that Iran is now a Muslim minority country. Iran is now a Muslim minority country. This happened within the past 40 years. Within less than one generation, Iran has went to being close to 100% Muslim to now being an Islamic minority country, only because people are changing their minds, choosing to change their mind. Last time I checked, Iran wasn't invaded in the past 40 years by a Western power. Like I'm not saying any troops on the ground forcing people to leave Islam and spreading human rights and modernity and secularism. It seems like these people are just tired of Islam, right? Right? In contrast with state propaganda that portrays Iran as a Shia nation, only 32% explicitly identified as such, while 5% said they were Sunni Muslim and 3% Sufi Muslim. Another 9% said they were atheists. 9% said these are self-identifying atheists in Iran. 9%. Okay. However, if you actually look at the survey results, the actual atheists are 20%, because you have self-identifying atheists and people who don't believe in God but don't choose the label atheist, right? People who don't believe in God are atheists, even though they're not self-identify as atheists, right? So if you actually look at the actual number of atheists in Iran, it's closer to 20%, along with 7% who prefer the label of spirituality. Among other selected religions, 8% said they were Zoroastrian, 1.5% said they were Christian. Okay, hold on. like most Iranians, 78% believe in God. That means 22% of them do not believe in a God. That's like 22% atheists. Only 37% believe in life after death. Guys, only 37% of Iranians believe in life after. Wait, what? But only 37% believe in life after death. That's crazy. Only 30% believe in heaven and hell. Only 30% of Iranians believe in heaven and hell now. In line with other anthropological research, a quarter of our respondents said they believed in gens and gens and genies. Gens are genies. Around 20% said they did not believe in any of the options, including God. 20% of people said that they don't believe in God, afterlife, religion, jinns, or any of it. So we have 20% atheists in Iran. That's huge. Guys, isn't that higher than the United States now? Wait, where was the switch? Oh, here. This is the best number. 47% of Iranians reported losing their religion in their lifetime. Close to half of Iranians, current Iranians, have left Islam, left religion. 47% of a country around 80 million people has not left just Islam, but religion as a whole. 6% of them said they changed from one religion to another, but 47% of them have left religion. No, their religion. Actually, no. It could maybe 47% of them, maybe their religion. So maybe they have left from one religion to another one. So if we exclude the 6%, we could say 41% of them have left religion as a whole. Let me see if there's any numbers when it comes to secular. Okay. 43% said that no religion should have the right to proselytize in public. Okay, I don't agree with that. However, 41% believe that every religion should be able to manifest in public. Yeah, I'm actually in favor. Guys, these people are actually more extreme. 47% of Iranians are actually more extreme than I am when it comes to going the other end and thinking like you shouldn't even be able to advocate for your religion in public. That's incredible. That's unbelievable. Look how extreme this is getting. So I believe in the practice of wearing the hijab. Look at this, guys. 58% of Iranians disagree with hijab. Guys, the question is not mandatory hijab. This is just hijab. Do you see this? I believe in the practice of wearing a hijab. 58% of Iranians just I'm anti-hijab. I don't like hijab. Okay, so what this is not showing, but what the research showed with these data, the sources of this data also showed, is that a lot of Iranians, including Iranians who are still religious, now believe in secular democracy. They want secular democracy. They don't want an Islamic government. Even the Muslims in Iran don't want an Islamic government. So no, Daniel, wrong again, Daniel. When you said that apparently the only way to promote this is by force, you're wrong.
Forcing people
What we're actually observing is around the world is if there's any force involved, is on the Islamic side, trying to force people to adhere to Islam. When it comes to human rights, when it comes to secularism, when it comes to modernity, when it comes to leaving religion, the main source of that is people choosing it.
Gets people to abandon their religions, to freely choose human rights. History.
Yeah, and also Susanna is mentioning in the highlight is that this research that was conducted, it was insanely high sample size. Like if you actually look at a lot of the polling, like, in the United States, when they give you very credible polls that are considered the best when it comes to getting closest to what reality is, a lot of these polls don't, like, the sample sizes are like 1,000, 2,000, and even those are really good numbers. This poll that was conducted in Iran, it started, I think, with 50,000, and then it was cleaned up and removed all the suspicious ones and all the ones that were like might not have been good, collected randomly enough, right? And it did the clean sample size was 40,000. 40,000, that's a huge sample size. That's an amazing sample size, and that's what the results show. And guys, I am one of the most optimistic people in the world when it comes to what I think about the future of religion. Like, my guesses of when religion is going to die is more optimistic than most of my ex-Muslim friends, right? And streamers. However, I could not imagine that I would get to say that it seems like Iran is a Muslim minority country in my lifetime. Like, if anybody suggested that to me, I would like, okay, that's like, I'm optimistic, but you're just ridiculous. Like, that is way beyond. That is that is not possible, right? And now apparently, like, I'm not even that old yet, and yeah, it happened. Unbelievable. And also, if you look at the rates of people leaving Islam, even in North America, 25% of the second generation Muslims in America are leaving Islam. Daniel, last time I checked, none of them are being forced out of Islam. So our ideas are capable of winning without genocide, Daniel.
Has definitively proven the light of reason and human rights. So, Harris, my question is simple. Clearly, the world is not going to freely choose human rights.
Clearly, Daniel.
History has definitively proven that, and Afghanistan is only the most recent example. If you really want people to abandon their religions, abandon their ways of life, their cultural heritage, and replace them with human rights, you have to force them. And forcing people inevitably gets very brutal and very bloody. That's the only way. That's why the 19th, 20th, and 21st centuries are soaked with the blood of non-Europeans who were killed in the name of spreading freedom and democracy. So are you going to be honest, Harris? And
again, another article on the Human Rights Declaration that all of that would violate is article number 3, which says everyone has a right to life, liberty, and security of person, right? Everybody has a right to life, liberty, and security of person. So all the crimes that you're mentioning, by all those colonialists. Hold on, let me see what he said.
Stand by of spreading for centuries are soaked with very bloody. That's the only way. That's why the 19th, 20th, and really want people to abandon their religions, abandon their ways of life, their cultural heritage, and replace them with human rights. You have to force them. And forcing people inevitably gets very brutal and very bloody. That's the only way. That's why the 19th, 20th, and 21st centuries are soaked with the blood of non-Europeans who were killed in the name of spreading.
I'm almost sure that if you're soaking the ground with people's blood, that would be in violation of their right to life, liberty, and security of person. I think that would be a violation.
Freedom and democracy. So are you going to be honest, Harris, and stand by colonialism? Look, if human rights are so wonderful as you claim, Harris.
Maybe are you going to be honest, Daniel, and not misrepresent what human rights is actually advocating for? Are you going to actually like go through the Human Rights Declaration with your ideas? Maybe actually tell them actually what human right advocates for, instead of trying to misrepresent it by connecting it to something that is not only not about, but it's actually the opposite of.
Less than 200 years of brutal colonialism and millions of dead must have been worth it. Why don't you own it, Harris?
Why would you own it, Harris? Why wouldn't you own something that has nothing to do with human rights?
Advocate human rights, you're like a chef that presents this appetizing sausage to your audience, but you aren't honest about how that sausage is made. Muslims, at least, are honest.
How is that sausage made? The sausage was made through thinkers advocating for ideas to stop the crimes that you are talking about are the crimes that advocates for human rights are trying to stop. So if anything, it was the sausage. God damn it! It's the complete opposite of what he says. These crimes that are committed, the human rights advocacy is actually in response to these crimes. It's the pressure against it. It's trying to stop it. It's often, every time human rights is gains more advocacy, is because of the horror that these crimes, the way these crimes shock our conscience, and we are trying to find a way to reduce it. I mean, what, like, is he going to go find every crime in history after, like, the rise of, after modernity and the advocacy for human rights became popular, and you're going to find every crime that is committed and be like, oh, we still have brutality, therefore human rights bad? I mean, did you think, like, the advocates for human rights say, like, oh, because we started advocates for human rights, that means that all war crimes have stopped? Like, do you know war crimes and have reduced, right? Like, if you want to do this correlation causation thing, it's not going to look good for you, Daniel, because ever since the advocacy for human rights, peace, war, people dying from violence has dramatically been reduced. So, like, here's the thing: human rights advocates don't claim that because there has been an advocacy for human rights, there has been zero war crimes. Obviously, as successful as human rights advocacy has been, it hasn't been able to eradicate war crimes, right? But relatively so, it has been very successful. It has been unimaginably successful in reducing it, even though it hasn't wiped it out. And the fact that in the past 100 years, human rights advocacy has saved so many lives from violent death, and Daniel, instead of being grateful, goes and finds the examples, the many still existing examples where it hasn't been wiped out yet, and we're like, oh, look, we still have war crimes. Oh, we also have human rights advocacy. Human rights advocacy must be causing it. Have you lost your mind, Daniel?
Islam is honest that spreading Islam sometimes requires war. That's acknowledged in the Quran in the example of the Prophet, peace be upon him. And I'm not equating Muslim conquest with European colonialism, by the way, because there are major differences that we can talk about. For one, Euro-American colonialism, past and present, is genocidal, and the death counts make that very clear. But my point is, you human rights activists are not honest. You don't own up to the true horrifying nature of spreading freedom and democracy. So Harris, if human rights are so brilliant and fantastic, then be consistent. Tell us that the millions of deaths and the brutal occupations are worth it. You can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs, right? So just own it. Stop pretending you're something you're not. You're just playing a con game. The only way you can credibly sell human rights to your audience is if you hide all these things or gloss over them. You hide the brutal history of human rights. You hide the fact that human rights destroys marriage, family, community, how it attacks every traditional way of life. You have to hide all these things because otherwise no one would buy it.
Every tradition? Okay. Every tradition. Didn't we just show? Let me see how many. Okay. Human rights destroy every tradition. Everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration without distinction. No, okay, that one. Due to race, nationality, everyone has the right to freedom of thought. Yeah, we read this one. Everybody has the right to their religion, basically, Article 18. The freedom to change their religion or belief. The freedom to manifest his religion or belief in teaching, practice, or worship and observance. So yeah, basically Article 18 in the Human Rights Declaration gives you the protection for you to practice your religion and practice it and do your worship and observe your religion. So no, it doesn't. It's not against every tradition. In fact, it gives you protection to observe and worship and do you.
And actually,
as long as it doesn't violate other people's rights,
it would make Islam look pretty good because Islam is fighting against this human rights monster. But you can't be honest, can you, Paris? So just stop with this con game.
All right, let me actually highlight a few things that he mentioned. Okay. So let's look at this, because apparently the world is falling apart, according to Daniel. Because first of all, even if the world was falling apart, even if we had like violations of human, war crimes and genocide just everywhere, Daniel had to prove that this is because of human rights advocacy, right? He doesn't. He doesn't. He just said like, oh, look, we have war crimes. This, and then he concludes, this must be because of human rights advocacy. And like, how did you make that connection, Daniel? Just because both of them exist doesn't mean one caused the other one. But even if that was true, Daniel doesn't provide any evidence for why one causes the other one. But actually, one of them actually is not true, because as you can see here, and this is a very recent study by the University of York, okay? And study settles the score on whether the modern world is less violent. Okay, let's look at this. Wait, look, where's the conclusion? Okay, let's just read this. Okay, so a study by mathematicians has used new techniques to address the long-running debate over whether battle deaths have been declining globally since the end of the Second World War. So, full story. While the first half of the 20th century marked a period of extraordinary violence, the world has become more peaceful in the past 30 years. A new statistical analysis of the global death toll from war suggests. Oh yeah, actually, it's right here. The conclusion is right at the top. Guys, I hate it when these articles and studies just bury the conclusion somewhere like deep at the end. Just tell us what you found, and then the rest. Tell us the rest. Okay. So good. It's right at the top. So while the first half of the 20th century marked as a period of extraordinary violence, overall, the past 30 years, things have become a lot more peaceful. The study by mathematicians at the University of York used new techniques to address the long-running debate over whether battle deaths have been declining globally since the end of the Second World War. The team carried out a change point analysis on publicly available datasets tracking the number of global deaths in battle since the Napoleonic Wars. The researchers fine-tuned an algorithm to accurately detect the points. Okay, this is the details. But basically, things are looking better. Okay, guys, I know when you turn on the news, I mean, nobody turns on the news anymore. I know when you check the news on YouTube or whatever place you follow it, or your podcast or whatever, you think like the sky is falling and the world is coming to an end, but things are better than ever before. Things are bad, horrible, but better than before. Okay, everything, death by violence, you are way less likely to be killed by violence compared to 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 500 years ago. This is the best time to be alive, and the future is going to even be better based on everything we know. Okay, unless something extraordinary happens, right? So, and guess what? So ever since World War II, and guess what? Actually, let me actually show you something else. So if correlation was causation, what happened right after World War II? Yeah, let me show you. Yeah. Okay, there we go. So, look at this. Many of the basic ideas that animated the human rights movement developed in the aftermath of the Second World War and the events of the Big H. Okay, I'm not going to read this out loud because YouTube is sensitive. Guys, when I say YouTube is sensitive, it doesn't mean that when we say these words, we're going to get a strike, because people say like, YouTube is not sensitive. I've seen other people say this, and it doesn't, their channel is up. And I'm not saying that the channel is going to, like, if we say the Big H or the Adolf guy's last name, it doesn't mean that we're going to get a strike. It just means the algorithm is just going to be like, oh yeah, we're going to suppress your video a little bit. Like your channel will survive it, obviously, but it's just like there are certain words that YouTube decides to suppress a video, and sometimes it decides to use certain words that you use. YouTube decides to show it to more people. In fact, here's the way. Maybe that. Let me see if this works. Insurance, house ownership, buy stocks, cryptocurrency, car insurance, travel, credit cards. Okay, I'm just these words. Maybe like I'm just gonna say it. The YouTube algorithm is maybe like, oh, this is a video that. Guys, have you seen the latest Marvel movie that came out? Yes, wasn't it great? Which one is it? I forgot the name. Okay, so these are keywords that might, if you use, YouTube might be like, oh my god, this is like the kind of video that more people would like to see. So it helps more people. Just you might get some favors by the algorithm gods. But these words, like the big H, and some other words, will make YouTube be like, okay, no, shh. People, my community doesn't need to see this. Okay, so that's how it works. Okay. Okay, YouTube guys right now. Yes, say it. Insurance, buy stocks, buy out the guys. This is not financial advice. Okay. Okay, cool. So let's read this again. Many of the basic ideas that animated the human rights movement developed in the aftermath of the Second World War and events of the Big H, culminating in the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, right? The one that we were just referring to. So guys, if you want to, these ideas that we call Enlightenment values, they became a lot. Other people were promoting them before as well in much less nuanced ways. They became very popular in the 1800s in Western Europe by Enlightenment thinkers, right? But there was, and yes, it had some major effects on people, on politics, and people's actions and people's way of thinking. In the French Revolution, in the American Revolution, the founding fathers of the United States had an impact on their way of thinking. It had a thinking of many European countries, and in many other places all around the world. It had major impacts on the way people think. But I don't think people understand that the actual commitment to it, and how important, how widespread they got, and how it only started happening in response to World War II and the crimes associated with it, right? So, yes, the birthplace of them could be argued that it happened during the Age of Enlightenment. And I'm not trying to say it didn't have much of an effect after that, because right after the Enlightenment thinkers died, the French Revolution by itself was extremely bloody and a violation of human rights itself. But again, it had an effect on their constitutions, and the American Constitution first. And even before the Enlightenment thinkers, there were other influences of human rights in other places. I'm not trying to do a black and white and binary and be like, oh, it was only after World War II. But the level of commitment to it and the advocacy for human rights only picked up to such on a mass scale internationally in response to World War II. All right. So if you want to see if you want to pinpoint when was it that human rights became a global movement with a lot of advocates and a lot of people deciding this is the way to go, okay, it was right after World War II, because of the world thinking never again. We need to avoid what just happened at all costs, right? So if you want to actually do a correlation analysis on the effect of committing to human rights and human rights advocacy on war and peace, then this is the time that you need to. So again, the Declaration of Human Rights that I keep showing you was after World War II. So culminating in the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in Paris by the United Nations General Assembly in 1948, right? So again, that resulted in, where is this? Where's the human rights thingy? This, right? And again, we'll see if you want to follow Daniel's line of reasoning, the world has become a lot more peaceful since. A lot more peaceful since. Does that mean, like, if you then go like, no, Armin, I see, what are you talking about? Look what's happening in China. Look what's happening in Yemen. Look what's happening in Afghanistan. Look what's happening in Syria. Look what's happening in Iraq. Look what's happening in, did I say China? I think I said China, right? Like, look at what's happening in India. Look at what's happening here or there, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's not peaceful. Look at what's happening in Palestine, right? That's because you don't understand that that yes, things are bad, but it's better than before, and it's only continuing to get better. The 20th century, with both of the world wars in it, was the least violent century compared to every other century that came before it. That's extraordinary. Like, these are the worst wars that we have had in this. Two of the worst wars that we have had in history, and with including the deaths from those two wars, the 20th century was the least violent century. So is Daniel going to say that? Daniel keeps saying, like, why aren't you honest? Why aren't you honest, Harris? Why are you not telling people the whole truth? Why are you hiding? Are you going to tell your audience, Daniel, that this is the best time to live in? This is the least violent time to live in? That if you want to do correlation, if you think correlation is causation, that ever since we had the Declaration of Human Rights, even ever since we had a global move to the advocacy for human rights, ever since then, death from wars have been reduced, and dramatically so, and on a pace that even the most optimistic people couldn't imagine happening. Are you going to mention any of that? Anyways, I think, should we continue or leave the rest for later? I think we did 2 hours. Let's just look at some of the things you're saying in the live chat and then do the rest later. What do you guys think so far about the points that we brought up? Are we going in the right direction? Do the same? Oh, wow. Susanna saying, excellent point, Armin. Thank you. I don't know which one this is, but which of my points was excellent. But thank you. Guys, we're going to talk a lot about family in the future episodes. Okay, so this is going to become a major topic because Daniel is going to move on to focus on how much modernity is threatening family. Okay, and that's something that we're going to be discussing. And again, he wants this to be a discussion on how bad modernity is rather than how bad Islam is. And again, I'm happy that Harris mostly focused on highlighting how bad Sharia is instead of like making this a defense of modernity. However, modernity and human rights need to be defended. So we're going to spend our review of this debate doing just that. Music is saying, yeah, thanks for picking these apart. Oh, thank you, guys. Guys, your compliments actually do help motivate me, so keep them coming. Secular Red saying, oh, you have done a great job breaking this debate down. Ah, thanks. It's all about family. Yes, it's family. Okay. Daniel Haqiqatjou, the family guy. Guys, here's the thing. A lot of people might think that I'm going to go the route of attacking family and saying, no, family is not important, okay? No, I'm actually going to make the argument that we need modernity to defend family, okay? So if anything can save us from the destruction of the family unit, is modernity and modern values. Secular Reality saying, I know this isn't the right time, but can we get more videos of you petting your dogs? Guys, follow me on my, if you want me more videos and pictures of me and my little girls, then follow me on Facebook. A link to my Facebook account and the personal Facebook is in the description. Just click follow, not friend request, okay? And I will promise to do more of that over there. All right, I'm gonna head out. I am starving now, and I need to feed myself. But this was fun. Unless you guys wanted to say anything else, you guys are just. And Qasim is saying analysis streams are great. Can't wait for part 3. Yes, guys. And if you guys want to see when part 3 is coming, this is probably going to be maybe 6-part episode because we're going to skip some parts when Harris is talking about his philosophical arguments for why Islam cannot even be used as a source of objective morality, which I agree with. I just think like it's not the topic at hand here. We're talking about Sharia law. I think if the topic of the discussion was morality, Islamic morality versus, utilitarianism, maybe that would be a good topic to discuss. But I think since we're talking about Sharia versus human rights, I think we should focus on those parts. So I'm going to skip the second opening of Harris when he talks about why Islam is not even a good source of objective. It cannot be used for objective reality at all, which I agree with actually, but I just want to skip that part. All right, I'm gonna head out. I just had some. It's hard for me to leave because guys, like the video. Just feed the YouTube gods. Feed them. These are vengeful and hungry gods. However, the good thing about the algorithm gods is that they're not bloodthirsty. They want blue, not red. Okay, make the like button go blue and they be happy and they will bless this video. If you click the like button, the only gods that we worship here are the YouTube gods. Okay, so feed the algorithm with your likes. Just hit the like button and maybe maybe they decide. And yes, insurance, real estate, car, buy all. Don't buy the cars actually, guys. You don't need a car unless guys. Don't buy cars. Okay, cars are useless unless specific situations. This is not financial advice. The guys don't actually. None of these are. I'm gonna go. Bye.